And hello, friends, and welcome to the Yank and the Brit NFL podcast.
I'm Kevin, and I'm the Yank.
And I'm Danny, and I'm the Brit. And today we have a ton of stuff coming up, a ton of interesting subjects to talk about. But first, I'd just like to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Yep, that's right. We have no sponsors because this is only the second episode that we've ever done. So, boom, here we go, guys. So, Kev, so lots of interest. How you doing today anyway, by the way, buddy?
Oh, it's a fine day in Miami.
Oh, I bet it. When is it not a fine day in Miami? Except for
Trust
when
me,
the Dolphins are playing.
last Saturday was not so fine.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Well, hurricane season, I guess, isn't the best, but
That's right.
otherwise, I'd trade Miami for Rhode Island any day. Anyway, so we have a ton of interesting stuff coming up today, and first we're going to hit off with our main NFL news, and so let's talk about the opt-out, because the opt-out is being very interesting. Lots of news and stuff going off with the opt-out at the moment. There's a ton of players all over the board that have been opting out. And, how do you think it's going to affect the league, Kev?
Well, there are some interesting names on the opt-out list for individual teams. There are going to be some teams, actually there are like 3 or 4 teams that have no opt-outs. So I guess at the beginning it's not going to be affecting them, but there's going to be some that are going to be, they've got quite a few names on there. So I think they're going to have to find replacements, and who knows how good those replacements will be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the first things that I noticed on the list. And I just saw the updated list today, which I'm going to put on screen for everybody. Hopefully we'll be able to fit it all on screen because there are a lot of guys. But yeah, it's actually quite bizarre how the Chargers, the Steelers, and the Falcons actually have no people opting out yet. Now, what do you think? And weirdly enough, actually, the Buccaneers only have one person who's dropped out, and that's the offensive tackle Brad Seaton. And he actually only opted out in the last day or two because, I was looking at this list on Tuesday or Wednesday, and actually the Buccaneers at that time were the main team that stood out to me with no opt-outs. So, I mean, how do you think it's going to fare for these teams? Like, what do you think their chances are now that with them not having anybody opting out?
Well, I mean, they're going to have to play up to their. They're going to have the chance to have their full teams. No excuses for them. I see them having a slight advantage because the players that are going to opt out, teams that are going to get hit the most, have really got to scramble to find competent replacements. These games are going to count. There's no preseason, so from game one, it counts, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, like you said, no excuses. If you've got a full roster and a healthy roster as well, there isn't no reason why someone like the Falcons with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones shouldn't be putting up some great numbers and some great results. To be honest, they had a good couple of acquisitions as well in the off season. So I do really expect some good things from them. Like I said, some teams, and we spoke about this before, some teams like the Patriots, and I'm looking in the Browns, have a crazy amount of people opt out. The Patriots actually have the most people opting out with, I think it's 6 to 8 people opting out. So, I mean, how do you think it's going to affect the Browns and the Patriots as a team?
Well, the Patriots are already in flux because of the quarterback situation. They've got that situation already going. Cam Newton, he's got to come in and get used to his new players. They may be putting in somewhat of a new scheme. All of that stuff is tough. I'm looking here at their opt-outs, and they've got 3 or 2 guys. Is it 2? For Pridgeon, He's no, offensive guard, 3 offensive guards. That is tough for the Patriots. That's going to be very interesting. And one of their guys has come to the Dolphins. Harris, I think, is his name. Harris.
Oh, geez, yeah, Harris, man. So you got another one of our players now. Geez, you're just becoming like the Patriots
Patriots
Mark II,
South.
aren't you?
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
Patriots. We're
Mark II.
Patriots South.
So yeah, I mean, actually, and this is a weird thing because you say we got the Cam Newton situation, and I will say, being a Patriots fan, I've been following a few bits and bobs of them, or quite a few bits of them recently, and yeah, it's really weird because I know we've got a few missing from the offensive line, but I almost feel like our offense has no excuses. I mean, obviously we've got to fit Cam in and we've got to adjust to Cam, but in terms of the opt-out, I feel like we don't have a lot of excuses. We haven't like had a whole lot of great key players missing, but like we always say, football defenses win championships at the end of the day. And the Patriots, even though we didn't go that far last year, had the best defense in the league by none. Nobody can doubt that. Until we got knocked out, I think we had the best defensive record. And, you know, our players were always players of the week, whether it's Hightower, Gilmore, you know, we were always up there having some of the top defensive players.
Well, Gilmore was good unless he played Devontae Parker from the Dolphins.
Everyone has their kryptonite. But at the end of the day, and looking at this list though, it's the defense where most of our guys are opting out, and that kind of worries me. I know Bill Belichick is a mastermind, and he is defense orientated, like he was a defensive coach.
Right.
So I kind of have to feel like I have to keep faith in him there. But yeah, like I don't think it looks good for us. And I get why some of the people are dropping out, especially people like Dante Hightower, you know, and I kind of can't fault them. It's definitely not because they hate playing for Belichick, because someone like Hightower has played for him since he was 18. Like he's played his whole career for Belichick. But I'm kind of like a little bit annoyed because I feel almost like they're screwing Cam over. It's and not intentionally, but you know, like Cam's got a 1-year contract. We know that he's got a bad contract where he has to perform, well, bad in his terms, where he has to perform extremely well to get the maximum out of it. And obviously, if he does really well, I'm sure we will sign him again to a longer, more wealthier contract. But I almost feel like they've put Cam on the back foot now. Like they've just made his chances to succeed a lot harder. And I feel like if Cam is going to get a good contract at the end of this year from us, or probably from anyone, he's going to have to look more at just making us the best offensive team that he can do, and making us like hopefully one of the league's best offensive teams, and not worry about necessarily the win-loss record. You know, it's going to have to be more about his individual stats and the offense's stats than just the team stats as a whole, because, you know, we could do really, really badly, and it could be through no fault of Cam's. It can literally just be because we've got no defense.
Well, you know, I'm looking here because you brought up the Browns as well. The Browns, 3 offensive linemen out.
Yeah, all OGs, all offensive guards, you know, one offensive tackle and 1 defensive tackle as well. Yeah, so I know, and this is an interesting thing as well, because
they need a bounce back season.
Or they definitely
there's going to be a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of changes in that organization if they do not produce a winner this year.
Well, this is the thing, because this is Baker Mayfield's make or break year. Like his first year, he was playing on house money, so he could just play however he wanted, and he came off pretty well with it. Last year, particularly with having Odell Beckham and Nick Chubb and all the other guys, like they were weaponed up. Jarvis Landry, everyone, they were weaponed up. And there was expectations on him, and he didn't perform. So now he's in his 3rd year.
And it really is. This, I agree 100%. This is Baker Mayfield's year to get it right or not. because
Yeah.
we know it's not the wide receivers. However, I do think Odell Beckham is a little overhyped. I don't think he's been as great as he thinks he is, or some other people think he is. He made that one catch. He made that one catch against the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and that was the highlight of his career, I believe. He's made some other good plays, but I don't even think Odell Beckham is in the top 5 receivers.
I mean,
in the
you say that,
NFL.
but you say that though, but he still racks up like way over 1,000 yards every season. He did last season.
Yeah.
But he has actually admitted, and I can't remember if it was in the round table talk that he did with Cam Newton or if it was another interview that I watched. I think it was on the round table talk, that he didn't quite feel like himself last year. I think he said that he was trying to, because Odell is a little bit crazy, a little bit vibrant, like Cam Newton is a little bit out there. I guess the different kinds of people, but they're both a bit out there in terms of they don't fit into the corporate league. And he was saying that I think last year at the Browns, he was trying to do that a little bit more, that's why he like shaved off the blonde hair and
Right.
and all that stuff. And he was trying to fit more into like what the NFL wanted. And he says he thinks that took away from his playing and it didn't allow him to be free and be who he wanted to be. So,
but Danny,
like a lot of these guys, he's made the statement that he's going to basically be the old Odell and that we should see his numbers go up this year. Whether it happens or not, we'll have to wait and see. But
Danny, when you're being paid the money that Odell Beckham is being paid, it's your job to feel it and to get it done. When you're being paid and relied upon by that much, I don't care what his feelings are. And so he needs to do it because he's got people counting on him. He's got a front office and an owner that are counting on him. He's got a quarterback whose job is on the line to get it done. And he's got all of his other teammates, a lot of whom will be shipped out. And it could rely because he's not doing his job and he's not feeling it. I'm sorry, but that don't count in my book. You need to feel it because of the amount of money you're being paid and what's being put on you. No babying these guys.
I 100% agree with you as well. I agree with you for all of these players, even the lower level players. I'm like, dude, you're getting paid millions for a sport. I love the sport. I like investing in it. But at the same time, I'm like, you're getting paid, I have the view of you're getting paid millions to throw a ball when people out here saving lives are getting paid a quarter of what you're getting paid in their lifetime.
Danny, there's also 40 million people in this country that are out of work right now.
Yeah.
That too.
Well,
you're getting paid to catch a football and, I'm not feeling it. Sorry, that ain't going to go over well with the public.
Yep, and that's another interesting thing about the opt-out, which actually we'll come to in a sec. So I just want to finish off this thing. So who do you think overall, looking at the opt-out list, who do you think are the teams that are going to now succeed the most or certainly have the best chance of succeeding? And who do you think are the ones that are going to do the worst or struggle the most?
Well, I think the Browns might struggle the worst. Because of that offensive line being depleted like that, is a real problem.
And Baker really needs them to protect him. They really need him to protect him so he can get his throws out there.
Because even though it says offensive guard, I'm sure some of those guys can play different places on the offensive line. And since there are injuries during the year, those can, change and be shifted, and you need them as backup. So that's going to be that's really tough for the Browns. So I think New England's going to have a different time. It's going to be a struggle for them a bit, but my team with the number one struggle, I believe, is going to be the Browns.
I would I would probably have to go for. I mean, I don't want to go for the Patriots because they're the obvious ones, but I kind of feel like I do have to go for the Patriots, mainly because of how well we normally perform every year. Even though we didn't go far, we still had a great record last year, and I reckon this is pretty much a tanking season. I mean, I'm sure we're not going to tank because that's not Belichick's style, and we want to get the best out of Cam. We want him to do the best, but certainly if we didn't acquire Cam Newton this year, I think most of us would be like, stuff it, let's just tank, see what we can do. I don't think the Browns so the Browns have, well, again, are one of the teams that had the most to lose, but the Browns didn't do well last year. So I don't think it's going to majorly affect their record from what they did last year. Yeah, we are expecting them to win and put more out there this year. But if
Well,
we
that's the
say,
thing.
say,
There's
do we reckon the Browns are going to win a lot less than what they or than what they won last season? No,
well,
I don't
I
think they
just
will.
don't think they're right. I don't think there's going to be improvement from the Browns. There's possibility, of course, always of having maybe winning an extra game this year, but that's probably about the most expectation I expect from them. I will be honest. I don't know what their free agent signings have been. So I don't know if they've signed a lot of free agents this offseason. I don't remember hearing that they've gone crazy on signing a lot of free agents. So I'm assuming that it's been, typical 2 or 3 minor signings here and there, backup players, for depth and so forth. But that's where I stand on that. I think the teams that are going to do the best, Steelers, will probably not be changed at all. I have to see Roethlisberger play. It's been nearly 2 years since he's really played, a year and a half since he's played a full season, and he's played, full on contact football. And I'm not sure his offensive line is quite as good as it was. It's older. He's older. He's actually getting way close to the end of his career. So I think that's where you're going to see the Steelers are going to have to win on defense rather than, I think, their offense.
Yeah. I mean, another quick one is like, in terms of the struggling teams, what do you think about the Jaguars and the Texans? I feel like the Jaguars might have a few like important players missing that might affect them, and obviously the Texans just haven't done well. Like in the
And they've got
not
a
so
lot of
much to opt
talent.
out, but they haven't done. I mean, they traded DeAndre Hopkins.
Well, they've got a lot of talent on that team, though. The Texans have a lot of talent. They have been one of the most disappointing teams the last year. Last year, they were definitely one of the most disappointing teams. I believe they made the playoffs the year before. So for them to have performed so poorly last year, and now this year, they couldn't improve themselves as much because they traded away their first-round draft pick for not only this past draft that we did, but for the upcoming in 2021. The Dolphins still have an extra first-round draft pick this next season because of the Laramie Tunsil trade. And Laramie Tunsil's good, but did he make a big difference on that team last year for a difference of 2 first-round draft picks? I don't think so. I think that was kind of a silly trade, and the Texans
I wouldn't even give up like to give up 2 first-round draft picks. I would be needing to be trading for a league MVP. It would I'd have to be trading for like a Patrick Mahomes, a Russell Wilson, maybe even like potentially a Tom Brady, like 2 first-round draft picks, even if even if they're like middle to lower end.
I know this is going to come as a shock to you, Danny, but yes, Tom Brady has had an illustrious career, great career and all.
Oh, he's definitely at the end of it. He's at the end of it.
But right now, I don't know that I would even trade a first-round draft pick for him.
I'd probably give one for him. I'd probably give one.
I would give a 2, but probably not a 1. I think he's at 43 years old. I think we saw it at the end of the season last year.
Yeah, I mean, because you want to be, I mean, with his age as well. Yeah, I mean, maybe if it was going.
Oh, it's his age, dude.
But let's put it this way: like 2 or at least 1 first-round draft pick. We're looking at a Lamar Jackson, like I said, a Russell Wilson. I might even trade 1 first-round draft pick for Dak Prescott. And that's just because
the thing
these guys still have years on the clock to progress.
With Wilson has been in the league now for about 8 years. So
I feel like he's still got quite a lot in him, though.
Yeah, but I wouldn't give up 2 first-round draft picks for him. One, yes. 1 first-round draft pick, and say a first and a fourth for certain, but not 2 first-round draft picks. No way. Wilson is either at the peak or on the downside of his career.
Yeah, I think with Wilson, it totally depends on who you got around. Because if you're a team that has a good offensive line, let's maybe take someone like the Browns, who you have good offensive players, but you've never won a championship or been to a finals. Just to have Wilson for 3 good years, 2-3 good years, and winning a Super Bowl or the chance of winning a Super Bowl, it might be worth those 2 draft picks. It might for a team that's never been there. And obviously, if you're a top end championship team that has a lot of history, I don't know, the Raiders or the Patriots, maybe somebody like that, then yeah, no, I wouldn't. But if you're Washington
but Danny, I can't compromise my future that much. For me personally, I'm too conservative for that. I would not trade that much of my future to just win 1 game. I can't do it. I think that's foolhardy.
It's not just 1 game, though. It's 1 trophy. And if you've never won a trophy in the history of this club's time, and there's a couple of teams out there that have never won a championship, and some that haven't even been to the Super Bowl, that could be worth it. Because I mean, a lot of these teams as well that I'm thinking about, really, they don't have a whole lot of chance of getting there in the next couple of years anyway. So
I don't know. I personally, Russell Wilson would not be one of the people I would value. Now, Lamar Jackson, or what's the dude? I forget who he is. For his name, the dude at Baltimore. Jackson.
That's Lamar Jackson.
That's Lamar Jackson. Who's the guy at Houston? Who's the guy at Houston? Deshaun Watson. And Kyler Murray. I think this year is Kyler Murray's breakout year with Arizona. Watch out. Watch out, Danny.
I'm with you on that one.
Breakout year for Kyler Murray. He was coming on strong at the end of last season.
I'm actually looking forward to seeing a lock play as well, for the Broncos lock. I don't know. I just think he's going to be exciting to watch this year.
But one of the things that they traded for a first round pick, the reason we had all those first round picks was because they traded for Juwan James, and guess what? Juwan James just opted out.
Yeah, I noticed that. That's going to be a big
that's a huge deal for I think the Broncos. So we'll see. I think that's a huge deal. The Broncos, I think, you're either going to be flat or take a step back a little bit this year. I'm not as high on them as some other people, because the opt-out has a big deal to do with that.
So my quick picks are the teams that I think will do the best, are going to take most advantage of this. I'm going to have to say I'm actually going to go with the Buccaneers. Now, I thought this one, they didn't have anyone drop out, and I still think only having 1 OT isn't going to affect them that much. I just think that if they can gel. Now, I have heard that Tom Brady is having a bit of difficulty, or it's certainly harder than he expected, learning this new playbook. But I think if he can nail in that playbook with Gronk, who will probably help him nail in the playbook because those two work so well together, with everybody else that they have, I actually reckon that they, especially if they can handle the Saints, if they can beat and deal the Saints, I reckon that they are the team that is going to do the best out of this COVID situation, this opt-out situation. And I'm certainly looking for more things from them this season now than what I originally was expecting from them. So they're probably my biggest pick. Teams like Cowboys and what have you are still the same. So yeah, I think they're the only real one. I expect the Saints to do real well as well. They are taking this opt-out thing seriously with the team hotels and stuff like that. So yeah, the Saints and the Buccaneers are going to be the teams that I expect to see the best from, or I'm expecting a lot more from now with this opt-out situation than I originally was.
Well, I like the Saints. I like the Saints all around. I think they're going to be just.
I think the Saints are a solid team.
I think they've got to drive. I think they've got to drive, and they know this is probably Breeze's last hurrah.
Yeah, they know that they definitely don't have a lot. Yeah, they know that they definitely don't have a lot of time left with Breeze. They have a bit of a chip on their shoulder because they feel like they should have been in the last two Super Bowls or at least in the championship finals. Yeah, and the Saints are just a solid team. If I wasn't a Patriots supporter, there's a high chance that I would be a New Orleans supporter because they are just, certainly over the last decade or so, they've just been a solid team. Yeah, they've not won anything. They've not really got to the final. But you can always just count on them to have quality and exciting play.
Well, I agree with you on the Saints, but I think that that is the team that I expect to do the best. And I know you're not going to like it, but I don't think the Buccaneers are going to actually be anything more than an 8-8 team. That's just the way I see it. I don't think Brady and Gronk, I just don't think that the Magic's really all there anymore. It's past their time. And that's going to be, I think it can be shut down quickly by the teams in that division.
I will say this. I
just don't see it. I personally don't see it. It's not because of my bias against Brady.
Yeah.
It's just their time is up. I mean, he's 40. He's going to be 44 years old, and 44 years old is way past when most people give up.
Do you know how old Drew Brees is right now?
It's about 44.
Exactly. Now, I will say I don't think it's past
But Drew Brees. Drew Brees also has shown a little bit of. He's shown a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, they will do so. It's all about making the right plays for the quarterback to make them look good at the end of the day. I think Gronk will help Brady settle into that. Now, I do agree with you a bit with Brady. However, I don't think it's past Gronk's time. I think that, but I won't be surprised with him being out for a year if it takes Gronk half a season to maybe even a full season to get back into playing mode, especially now that we don't have the
that's my contention is how is that year off and the party life that he enjoyed, all the ladies, he was popular with the ladies for a year. How is that going to affect him? And when he has to go back into a locker room with a bunch of guys, how is that going to affect him? I gave up all those ladies for this. I think that's going to be interesting to see. He may be focused for a few games, but after that he may say, "What the F? Why am I here and not enjoying myself? I've made plenty of money. I've got endorsements. I'm out of here. I'm opting." And he could always say, "I'm opting out." If there starts to be some COVID, around the league, he could then say, "Oh, okay, that's my excuse. I'll just say I'm opting out for COVID." even though it's because I want to go back and party with the ladies.
So moving on to the next subject, how do you think the NFL is going to deal with this COVID situation? You know, there's been a lot of guys talking about it, and they have been, and it's funny because they've been slanting the NFL for bringing forward this opt-out deadline, you know, and it's definitely a lot of uncertainty. But how do you think that the NFL are going to deal with this COVID situation? How do you think they're going to run the season?
Well, I think it's going to go poorly. Actually, I think it'll be even more of a problem because there's a lot more physical contact than you have in baseball. And look what's already happened in baseball. The Marlins, the Phillies, the Cardinals have all lost games because of it. And that's 3 teams, and you don't have that much physical contact in baseball. In football, you have a lot more. You have more contact even with your teammates. I think it's going to be. I don't know that they're going to finish the season. They may start it and get about 4 or 5 games in, but I think the problems are going to crop up right away, right after they start playing games, and there's going to be a problem. And I just see it that way. I mean, one college conference, the MAC, has already canceled its entire 2020 season. So for them to cancel their entire season, they have to have some pretty big concerns.
So then what do you think about, because you say that, but the NBA, granted they have a lot less players, personnel, but the NBA have managed it. So what do we think about an NFL bubble? Now, not surprisingly, when they had this meeting with the players, they were opposed to a bubble because of the length of the season. And some people think just with the amount of people that it's not going to work. But ironically enough, Vikings GM, Rick Spielman, said that quarantine is not an option, even though there is a hotel right next to the Vikings training ground. Ironically enough, the Saints, as I think I mentioned earlier, the Saints have rented 4 floors in a hotel right next to their training camp, where Coach Sean Payton predicts around 150 to 180 employees will go there. Now, it's not mandatory. It is an optional thing, hence why he doesn't expect all 180 to go there. But,
that there is a problem I have. You either do the bubble right or you don't. I mean, because all you need is one infected person to enter into the bubble.
Yeah, and everyone's screwed. Everyone is screwed.
Everybody's
screwed. I absolutely agree with that, and that's why I hate the fact that going back to what was on about before with the players getting paid the amount of money that they are. This is why I hate it when you have a bunch of players bitching, like Devin McCourty and like Odell Beckham. You know, they're bitching about the way the league's handling it. And a lot of these players don't want to do a bubble because it's spending 17 weeks away from their family. But at the end of the day, you're getting paid. Like Odell Beckham is getting paid $14.5 million to play this year. Are you trying to tell me you cannot spend fucking 17 weeks away from your family or whatever for $14 million? It's there's people that spend that much time away from their families that get paid a lot less for their job.
Danny, one of the things that's a problem is become the money. And now they are spoiled brats. And many of these guys, remember, they've been having their behinds canoodled. I'll say it nice without having to do an expletive. But they've had their behinds taken care of since they were in high school. You know, everything they do, they get praised for, even if it's wrong. They get praised for it. So they are spoiled. And now the money has spoiled them even more, and they feel so entitled. And it's taken them out of the realm of the real world, and they live in their own little bubble, and That's a
I
problem.
will say this is total diva behavior, and I can't remember if it was an NBA analysis or a football analysis, because obviously I think a couple of NBA players moaned about it as well. And it's like, hey, guys, you really are not connecting with the fans right now. For you to get paid this amount of money and be a diva about a subject like this,
Mhm.
I know they hate using this term. Especially I know LeBron James hates using this term, but this is a case where I believe they really need to shut up and play. You know,
Correct.
um, there's no reason to be a diva, and the worst thing about it is as well is again we mentioned Odell Beckham complained saying that he's feeling that the season shouldn't go ahead, it should be cancelled, and I think he actually even tried to make it into a bit of a racist thing, like, you know, oh, they're making us play and da da da. It's like, hold up, you have the option to opt out. If
Correct.
you don't like the way the season is going, if you don't like the way the NFL are handling it, then opt out. Go
Right.
away. Sit at home.
Nobody's
Don't get
forcing
paid.
you. Nobody is forcing them to do it. And even, even if a team was to turn them out, which could happen, I don't think that they're going to be able to use COVID-19 as an excuse to turn people out, because then they could turn around. The person could sue them and say, wait a minute, it was unsafe. It was
Yeah.
unsafe working conditions. They can't fire me because I complained about unsafe working conditions. So yeah, we've got that going. So
Yeah.
that's going to be it's going to be interesting to see the way that all turns out.
I just think they should either just shut up and play and get on with it, make a bubble, find some way, work with the
Correct.
NFL for some way to make it work, or opt out. Don't be a diva about it. Don't make a choice and complain about it. You made that choice. So
Correct.
go out there, play, earn your money, put a show on for us who are paying you.
I agree.
Essentially, we are paying you. Well, sit at home and don't get paid. But yeah, I do love the approach that the Saints have taken. As I said, Sean Payton is quoted as saying, the show must go on. We've got to do everything that we can to ensure that it happens. And I love that. That's a very Bill Belichick attitude of just, on to Cincinnati. It's just, well, whatever will be, will be. Let's just fucking get on with it. And I love that because
Right.
being British, that's very much our mentality. It's like, yeah, we got dealt a shitty stick. What can we do to make it work at the end of the day?
Stay calm and carry on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, obviously, they don't. If they do try a bubble, obviously it's crazy. They can't just do a bubble with all 32 teams like they do in the NBA in one city over a couple of courts or stadiums,
Right.
because it's not possible. So the way I propose that they should do the bubble, if I was working for the NFL, the way I propose that they should do the bubble is that they're going to have to change the schedule. They can't do the normal fixtures of how it's, of how they normally do it, with like playing all the AFC team playing all the AFC and then one or two NFC teams mixed in there.
You
The
play a
way
division. One division plays a division in the other side every year. That's how it goes.
Yeah. But so I reckon the way that they should do it is that they should have basically north, south, east, west. And this will be really exciting if they did this, because this is something that they haven't done before. So they have 4 bubbles, okay? North, south, east, west. So in the north, you have the AFC North and the NFC North. In the west, you have the AFC West and the NFC West. Same with the east and the south. And then they make the schedule where they play those teams as much as they can. So they play every team in that bubble 2 times, say, each, which again will make it interesting because, they've never done that, like an AFC
Right.
team.
And it would be,
AFC,
I think, one
yeah,
of the things that's going to be different with baseball and football, it's going to be very interesting to see how it works without a crowd. Crowds in baseball
yes,
make
absolutely.
a difference. Baseball crowds can make a difference, but football crowds make a ton of difference.
Massive
A
difference.
much
Yeah.
bigger difference. So that's going to be interesting to see how teams, that's something else I'm waiting to see. How do teams react without having a real crowd there?
Yeah.
Playing in front of an empty stadium,
And
going to
and
be
then
very interesting.
and then so going back to my thing, yeah. So they play every team in that bubble once or maybe twice.
Right.
Okay. And then what they do is to get the full 16, 17-week season, is that they will then just essentially move, and they only move like once if they can in the season, maybe twice, but then they'll move a collective. So say like they'll move the AFC East to the to the North bubble, and move the AFC North to the West bubble, and they just move one team around in a circle like that, and again play each other. So there's very little transportation. You're not moving back and forth every week from city to city.
Right.
Pretty
Well, they
much,
would have to either do a single bubble, which I don't think would ever work,
it's not possible.
or
So
they
I
would
think they're
have
going to
to,
need to
right,
do four
it's just not
bubbles.
possible because you have to play too
No,
many games on Sunday.
yeah. Well,
Or what
not
they would have to do is they'd have to play games
every day of the
on
week.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. They would
Yeah.
have to stagger the games. And then people aren't getting enough time to practice and stuff in between, because what if you play on a Monday and then you're scheduled to play on a Friday? And then the next week you're scheduled to play on, say, a Monday. And the week after that, you're scheduled to play on a Thursday. That's never going to work. You're never going to have
Well,
enough time to rest.
I'm sure that they could make it a way so it's staggered pretty evenly. Sometimes you do have teams that play on a Sunday and then play on a Tuesday next week, Thursday, sorry,
No,
next
no,
week in the normal
Thursday, right?
season. Yeah. So it does happen a little bit, but yeah, that's why I reckon they should have a North bubble, a
Well, I
East
think in
bubble, a
the
West bubble, and a
contract,
South bubble,
I
and then just
right,
move it around one time,
right.
move everyone around
I
one
believe
time, make fixtures, and then go
right.
into the playoffs.
I believe it's in the players' contract, the CBA, their collective bargaining agreement with the owners, that if they play on a Monday night, they cannot play on the following Thursday. They have to play. They cannot play until the following Sunday. So if
Yeah,
you're
that makes sense.
so yeah, because you have to have for their bodies to be able to recover, because football,
It's a
like you know,
lot. It's a
is
lot.
a very physical, and they need at least 2 days to get their bodies. That's why they have Mondays off. Mondays are a day off in the NFL, except for the two teams that are playing on Monday night.
So yeah, I mean, like one thing that I will say now, obviously it's different because they play indoors. So with the bubble aspect, if they do that or find a way of making that work, using the NBA as a model is very interesting, because the way how the NBA do it right now is that they have a virtual crowd, which is very interesting. So I can buy seats to get sideline court view and watch it. Now, obviously, they probably can't do that with the NFL because the NFL is played outside. That's going to take
Right.
a lot of video screen work to to put the
Yeah,
crowds up
no,
there.
no,
So
they can't do that
it
kind
will
of
be
stuff.
interesting to see how they do with a crowd. However, I do believe that after watching the NBA, with this bubble, we've actually seen a lot of really, really good basketball. Now, I know you don't follow it, but I
No,
do.
no, I
And
follow it enough to know that it's been pretty good.
yeah, but like I feel like some of the teams have been next level, and that's because they're in this bubble and they're away from their families and everything. It's like a training camp. It's like going to a summer camp or something like that, like where all they've got to do is focus on basketball. And I think because they're in this bubble, they have no outside distractions or very little outside distractions. It's allowing them to have a better game. So you're seeing teams perform better, particularly teams that are like middle of the road or not too good at teams performing much better. And I'd be interested to see how that would translate into the
Danny,
NFL if they did a bubble with the NFL.
well, the one thing that I would say is different between basketball and football is because they do play many more games, and so their competitive bubble is up, so to speak. Their competitive juices are flowing more. I'm interested to see how long this extra juice goes
Mm.
on, because if their season is longer than the NFL, so how long is that extra juice going to last?
It
With,
is,
with
but
the
we've sure.
NFL, with the NFL, it's once a week. That's all you play. With NBA, you're playing twice, sometimes even as many as 3 times a week, I think.
So they are, and the way they're working it right now. So they've shortened the season. Not all of the teams are in the bubble. There's only like 22 teams in the bubble. They've basically got the top 16 playoff teams, and then a couple of extras who were close to fight for spots.
Right.
Now, like my Celtics are playing a game roughly every 2 days. But again, because we're basically, the way it's working is we're playing about 8 games. Yeah, we're playing about 8 games just to finalize the standings, and then we're going into the playoffs. So, in terms of what we have in this bubble, we're going to be in there a lot shorter period than a full-on NFL season.
You have something to say about the XFL?
Yes, absolutely, I did. So, I'm quite a fan of the XFL. I did struggle to watch a lot of the games, I will admit, because of my working schedule and everything. But yes, big news this week in the XFL. The XFL is coming back. For those people that don't know, although it must be common, especially with the media coverage he has these days, Dwayne The Rock Johnson and his business partner, Danny Garcia, along with the Redbird Investment Company, have just purchased the XFL for $15 million, or they certainly put a bid in for it. Now, I need to find out if it's finally gone through, because the hearing for it was on Friday, I believe. But yes, as far as it stands right now, Dwayne The Rock Johnson has just brought the XFL for $15 million, a staggering $15 million. So I'm excited about that coming back.
I'm really excited. The XFL, the second edition of the XFL, actually wasn't too bad last year. I did not get to see full games, but I saw highlights on YouTube and on a couple of other social media sites. I actually thought it was pretty good. It was decent. And I think if they go by the way that they were doing, they can actually be a very useful help to the NFL, because they can get players, and there's going to be a lot more video on players that might be able to graduate to the NFL. So finally, we might have sort of like not using the college so much as a minor league system, and people not getting played for putting their bodies on at risk. People are going to be getting paid, and they're going to be professionals.
Yeah, I actually thought the XFL was really exciting. Last year, it was the fun football league, as Vince McMahon always wanted it to be. To me, it was the fun football league. Yeah, there was a few rough plays and a few a few hilarious drops and misplays and stuff. But you expect that when these guys are playing like in a pro kind of league for the first time in ages. It's going to take a bit of time to smooth out, but they were definitely heading in a very positive direction with this XFL 2.0. And from what I've heard, Danny and The Rock are kind of planning on keeping it like that. They want to build on it. Obviously, they're going to tweak a few things, but they're not going to totally remodel it. They're going to essentially take what is already there from the 2.0, and they're just going to expand and build on it. I've read a couple of interviews with Danny where she's talked about how they thought it was very exciting, and they saw a lot of potential just watching it as fans last year. And it was actually her that made Dwayne make the push to invest and purchase
That's going to be interesting to see how that works.
And it's going to be great, because it's going to be a league that's ran by a former footballer, because for those people that don't know, Dwayne Johnson not also was a WWE athlete, but he also was a football player at the Miami Hurricanes, which I'm sure Kev can tell you 101 things about, as he's a big Hurricanes fan. But yeah, it's
just a little bit, Danny.
Just a little bit. So it's going to be exciting, and plus also, actually, one question I want to ask for you is, what do you think it's going to be like, or what do you think it means for sports now, with this being the first major sports team to ran by first major sports league, not a team, not just a
Right,
team,
a
but a
league.
league ran by a female.
That's going to be interesting. Hold on. Pardon me. It's going to be very interesting. But I think it could also. But you know what? She's a pretty tough cookie. So I don't think it'll be run by it like a business. It's a business. It's to make a profit.
Absolutely.
So she's in it to make a profit. People have this thing. Well, women can't do this. Forget it. Women are just as ambitious as men are. And if they want to get a football league going, they will get it going. And I have no doubts it's going to be a fun league. It's going to be fun, good to watch. The more football there is, the better, I say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at Jeannie Buss, what she's done with the Lakers. And I'm sure there are a few of the females that just don't come to mind right now. So, yeah, absolutely. These guys are all about, Dwayne and Danny are all about making money. Everything that they touch turns to gold. I love the Terramano tequila. When was the last time The Rock did a bad movie? Everything that they touch, it works. Under Armour, very much actually. I'm wearing one of the Project Rock tops here.
I will say this,
so
Danny.
well.
I will say this, Danny. There have been women that have been in charge of teams, and they've not succeeded. Like Marge Schott. You want to know about a real piece of work, look up Marge Schott, Schott. She was the owner of the Cincinnati Reds way back when. Her husband died, and she inherited the Reds from her husband. She was horrible. But that was not because she was a female. It was because she was a horrible person and a horrible owner. She was a racist and a bigot, and they got her out. The NFL got her out as soon, or rather, the MLB got her out as soon as they could because she was such a bad. But it had nothing to do with her gender, and this should never be an issue with the new gal.
No, absolutely, and if you look at all of the teams that have done well over the years, whether it's Jeannie Buss at the Lakers or any sports team, whether it's a male or female in charge, the ones that have done the best are the people who are invested, who actually enjoy the sport. That's why I often say that if I wasn't a Celtics fan in terms of basketball, I would probably be a Clippers fan. If everyone's ever seen Steve Ballmer or even Mark Cuban of the Dallas Mavericks talk about the team and the sport, they are fully invested in it. And that's why I love The Rock being invested in it. I mean, The Rock was quoted as, I do actually have a quote here from The Rock, which I will bring up in just a second.
Danny, when you're listing off and you don't list Pat Riley and the Miami Heat.
Well, yeah, he's another one who is again super invested in Miami.
The Heat are almost always competitive every year.
Yeah.
I mean, look from their ownership.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, there are quite a few in sports. I can't name off everyone. Otherwise,
I know. I had to get you on that because you're going, he's avoiding Miami again. He's avoiding Miami.
Well, I feel like you're giving Miami enough promotion. So, but yeah, and going back to what they're planning on doing with the XFL, Danny said that they had a good model and like a good team there, and so they will be looking at bringing a lot of people back, probably including Pollock. I don't think Oliver is it. I keep thinking Oliver North, but it's not him. But the guy that was, so they're probably going to bring back Pollock, the CEO. They probably won't bring back North because he was fired by Vince McMahon, so there's probably some bad blood there, which is a shame because, again, those two is what made it, is what helped make the XFL a serious league.
Right.
It might still always be just a stomping ground for future NFL players, but I sincerely hope with this new team of Dwayne and Danny that they can become a good rival. You know, obviously they're probably not going to pull in the same amount of money, and you know, it's
Oh
never
no,
going to be a full on
it'll be a
flick.
pittance compared to the NFL.
But I still want them and hope that years to come they can be up here with the XFL. They can challenge them that much in terms of TV
Well,
ratings, things like that.
I think the XFL will, and The Rock will understand. They're not, and this was the whole idea behind Vince McMahon had said, we're not going to compete with the NFL, but we want to be a complement to the NFL. That's the problem with the others, like the USFL and the first version of the XFL, which there was about 10 years ago. They were trying to compete against the NFL. These guys are saying, we're going to be a complement. We're going to do things, you know, to make ourselves sustainable. And we're not going to go up against the NFL during the NFL season. We're going to play during the NFL's off season, which is against baseball though. But I know for you, that's okay. For me, I'll go, I'll have to keep my eye on both. But anyways, no, I think it is. It's going to be good. And I'm looking forward to it. All right, Danny.
Yeah.
Is there anything more you wanted to add?
I mean, there's loads about the XFL. I'm just excited about it.
Well,
I mean,
leave us something for next week because we have weeks to go until the NFL season starts.
Excellent. Well, one thing that I will say, and this is actually a great thing for even NFL fans who might have snubbed their nose at the XFL a little bit, is that I think the XFL has already talked about bubble. And I believe I'd love you to share your thoughts on this, but I believe that with them having a lot smaller amount of teams, that they are actually better equipped to this, which means could XFL be the football to watch this year or probably next year by the time they start it up? Could, with COVID and everything, could they be the sport to watch just because they can run it smoother?
Well, the money is still going to be the big deal. So, I mean, yes, they're going to have small. How many teams have they talked about? 6 teams, maybe 8 at the most?
The XFL, I think, had 8 teams last. Yeah, they
right,
had
I think
8
it was
teams
8 teams. And to me, that's perfect. That's perfect. And it doesn't need to be any larger than that. 8 teams is perfect. 4 teams make the playoffs. And then you have a champion. You have 4 teams with a wild card and a champion of each conference or whatever, or each division. And then you have a championship game. So that to me would be a perfect way to run it. At the start, you can expand as it gets stronger. But to start it off as a fledgling enterprise, 8 teams is perfect.
Yeah. And this is why I believe that they could be the league to watch, because I think the NFL, if they don't sort something out soon with the way that they run, the way they're going to run the league, if they try to run the league how they normally run it, I can easily see the season being cut short, being put down. Whereas I could see the XFL basically doing what the NBA is doing right now, and meaning that they can play out their whole season without any mishaps. And I'm reading like a quote here, so I'll try and get the full quote, but I'm reading a quote here from The Rock, and tell me this doesn't excite you. I mean, there's a reason why people want this man to be president.
He's a great speaker. I've seen him speak twice at morning breakfasts over at the University of Miami Alumni Center.
Yeah, and he says something like, his idea for buying the XFL is rooted deeply in 2 things: my passion for the game and my desire to always take care of the fans. I look forward to creating something special for the players, fans, and everyone involved for the love of football. And I remember there was a part where he mentioned about using, he has a lot of gratitude from his humble beginnings and using the calluses with his hands to get him this far, and putting those calluses on the XFL and using it to build the XFL up into the ground. I couldn't give you the full quote because I thought I had it here, but I can't see the file. But that is basically what he says. You know, he's going to use the calluses that he's learned from his years of being WWE superstar, to breaking into the movie world, to you know, getting this Under Armour deal and building up Terramana. He's
Who
going
is
to
a
put all
bigger
of
star?
that into the XFL.
Who's a bigger star right now than The Rock? I mean, The Rock is
No one.
world famous. Everybody around the world knows who The Rock is. So he can use and harness that ability. And it's not just because he's a name. It's because of who he is. It's his personality that he's been able to put on. He is Danny, I'm going to tell you, you get a chance to ever hear that man speak in person, you will be so pumped after you hear him talk. This is such a great idea and such a fantastic thing that he is buying this. It will work. He will make sure that it works, bro.
If there's anyone that can do it, it's going to be those guys. And even Pollock is quoted of saying, like, this is a Hollywood ending. You know, it's a dream team ownership group, and the XFL is the best possible, and the XFL is in the best possible hands going forward. And if this is from Pollock, a guy who has worked around the NFL and been in a lot of this media, you know, how can you not have faith in them over it, really? You know, they are in the best hands. The Rock is the most motivating person ever. I follow him on all of his social media. I see him on Instagram a lot.
He's he's just one of those people.
He lives the code. That's what I love about him. Is he pumps out all of this motivational stuff, and all of this philosophical stuff. And certainly from what I can see, he lives that code pretty much as well. He's not one of these bullshit people, and you get a lot of them these days. A lot of these motivational people who are who either were they were handed silver spoons, you know, or at least they've worked their way up, but they're so far in the cloud of millions, which is where The Rock is or should be, that they don't have no real connection. Like trying to pull somebody up out the dirt, like, because they have no real connection. I feel like The Rock can still relate and connect to those kind of people.
Remember where his beginnings are. He has also lived his whole life connected to wrestling. Do you remember from the 60s and 70s and 80s, there was a tag team called the Samoans.
Yeah, the Wild Samoans. Yeah, I
know.
Do
you know his connection? Do you know his connection to the Samoans?
Yeah, they're his uncles.
They're his uncles.
Yeah.
They're his uncles.
Well, his dad was also the great.
His mother is the Samoan sister.
Yeah.
They were real
his dad
brothers.
was also the great Rocky Johnson, and his dad, I think, was the.
His dad
Chief
was
Maivia.
No. His dad was the Rocky.
His granddad.
Rocky Johnson.
Yeah, sorry. His dad was Rocky Johnson, but his granddad, I think, was Chief Pete Maivia as well. You know, so yeah. I mean, he's
got Native American blood. He's got Native American blood. He's got African American blood, and he's got
Samoan blood.
And he's got Samoan blood, and he's got hurricane blood, baby. And you know that hurricane blood is really good. I worked it in there. I got it in there, baby. I got it.
So, but one thing that might be interesting for the XFL when they try to restart, and this would have actually been a good link into this subject, would be with all the opt-out going off in the NFL. How many XFL players do you think might get picked up now by the NFL? We already know that TJ Watt, is it TJ Watt? Yeah, TJ Watt has been picked up and is doing quite well since he got signed.
This is another thing. It's another way for guys that have talent that's been kind of undiscovered. They played at smaller colleges and maybe didn't get the publicity that guys that played at Ohio State that maybe don't actually have NFL quality playing in them. Just because you went to a small school does not mean you don't have NFL talent. There are so many players in the NFL that have been to smaller schools and have come through, and this is another way for them to showcase themselves and another way to have a chance to be seen by NFL scouts, because you're going to be crazy if you don't think the NFL scouts aren't going to be watching every single one of those games and tape on every single one of those games every week. They're not going to just be looking at college. They're going to be playing. They're going to be looking at XFL games too.
Oh yeah, I think XFL should be their main choice. Yeah, absolutely. I think it should actually probably be their main choice above college. So, but yeah, I mean, I'll wrap it up here. I will say it does seem right. You know, both The Rock and Danny were athletes. They both do entertainment, and sports is entertainment. And not only that, but the XFL was trying to be entertainment to the next level. It was trying to be sports entertainment. You know, I know that's what they call wrestling, but you know, it was supposed. They were trying to make it sports entertainment and take it to the next level with the different rules that they had, playing the game a different way to the NFL, the extra access to the players. They were trying to put real entertainment on top of it and take it to the WWE adaptive of, you know, sports entertainment, not just sports that were entertaining. So yeah, I'm super excited for it, and we'll have to see how it plays out. But that's all we have time for here today, folks. So do you have anything you want to add in quickly, Kev?
Nothing other than I'm Kevin and I'm the Yank.
Yeah, and I'm Dan and I'm the Brit. So we will see you all next week for the new episode of the Yank and the Brit podcast. See you later,
Episode
folks.
number 3. Episode
Number
number
3
3.
coming up.